Abayisai, welcome back to Yerushalmi Terumot. We are Paragraph Halacha Ches, which is Daf Mem Gimel. We're bringing another situation where you have Machlokes Reb Eliezer and Bishua, and we're talking about nullifying Truma. Okay, so remember the shit is on Torah anytime. You can watch it there. We thank the Kol Haloshon brothers for all that they do. The shit is also on Torah anytime. It's on Kol Haloshon and it's on podcast, Spotify and YouTube. Okay, so Truma. Shenafla al pi megura. So, you have a storehouse. All the grain is there. And the truma is there. It's sort of the truma stuff fell on top of all that was there. And it's fallen probably at the top of a big mound there. So we know the truma is there, like at the entrance to the megura, maybe at the top of the mound. But we don't exactly know where it is. Ukfa'ah. Now, ukfa'ah is the lashon here, of course, means floating. But here it means you're removing the top layer. So you're removing the truma, we think. You're not going to get exactly the truma, but you're removing the top layer of the grain. Okay? As I say, the lashon kfa'ah, like things which are hardened, things which are frozen. So some say it's like a svacha, like a hairnet or something that covers something. Okay. So truma shenafla pi megura ukfa'ah. So you removed the top level. Reb Eliezer says, Im yesh b'kafui me'asar. Now, if in that bit which you are removing, you have 100 sar of chulin, and we're assuming the truma fell into that bit which you are removing, so you remove the 100 sar of chulin, tale be'echad u'mea, then that sar of truma gets nullified in the 101. Even though we are sure that in the bit that you've removed, the truma may not necessarily, well, we don't know, but it may not necessarily be mixed in that mixture. We don't know. So you're removing the top layer, including 100 times the truma that fell in. We don't exactly know where the truma grains are. We know roughly, but we really don't know where it's gone. So you're removing an outer layer, and in that you are including 100 sar of chulin together, and that will nullify the 1 sar of truma. Okay, now the truma can be batel if that top layer you're removing has 100 chulin against it. So the rest of the rest of the grain is not joining up for bittul. Now this is going to go against the words in the Mishnah earlier on, which said you've got figs which are at the bottom of the jug, which nullify the figs at the top of the jug. Here we're not using the bottom of the mound to nullify the truma that fell in. Here we're saying you have to use the top bit. Now, what were you asking?
Why did you remove it at all?
Well, you've got truma falling in.
More than 100.
Now we do find the idea of if sar truma falls in, you should remove it because it's gezel hashevet. We want a sar of truma to go to a kohen. So if it falls in, even if it's batel, we don't want the kohen to lose out on getting a sar of truma, right? So there is an idea of gezel hashevet, that even though you're right it's batel, but we still want to give 1 sar to the kohen. Now, so here we're told it falls into the mixture. You should remove 100 sar of chulin with it, and even though we don't know for sure where it's fallen in. And we're going to ask, why is it different to the jug where you have the figs at the bottom join up to nullify the top? And here we don't seem to be saying that. Rabbi Yeshua says, Lo tale. You should not nullify this truma in this situation. Right? He holds the figs at the top of the jug are not mixed with what's at the bottom of the jug. So in our Mishnah, the bit that's at the top that you're removing, the truma is not really mixed there. You can't use the whole cover to mevatel the truma, the top layer. You can't use that to mevatel the truma. Now the truma is really mixed with all the chulin that you remove, but it doesn't join up to be mevatel it. It's like you're doing it b'mezid. You're intending to nullify the truma. That's what you're doing. I'm taking 100 sar. You're intending to nullify the effect of the truma. And that's bittul isur, that you're not allowed to be mevatel isur l'chatchila, right? And therefore it doesn't help. Doesn't help according to Yeshua. So lo tala, you're not going to nullify the truma in this situation. So what can you do? Sar truma shenafla pi megura, your soft truma that falls into this mound, and you want to be masakin wherever you can, yikfena, you remove the top layer, and we say through that you've taken out the truma, you treat that as a forbidden mixture, and the rest of the grain you treat it as chulin. You hear that? So he's saying, look, remove a top bit, but that is truma mixed with chulin. There's no bittul or anything, that's truma mixed with chulin. The rest you can treat as chulin. So by removing the top layer and the grain nearby, if there's a worry, maybe there's a bit of truma there, so that at least removes the loss from the rest of the grain. Because now the truma is not mixed with the rest of the grain. But the one you've removed definitely has truma in it. So you have to treat it as a forbidden mixture of truma and chulin. So your only a Cohen will be able to eat that stuff, right? He can buy it off you. You can't charge him for the truma bit, you can charge him for the rest. But only a Cohen can eat it. Now, according to Yeshua, the halacha that truma is bottled in 101. In Cain, if there is a solution for a mixture by removing truma, lama amru, why did they say, in what situation did they say truma oila v'echad memeah, where truma does get nullified in 101? He says, b'she'eni yadea, where you do not know, in belulos hain, if let's say after it fell in, are they mixed everywhere? Or you know, let's say where in the storehouse they fell, nafla, where they fell. So in these situations, where you've no idea where the truma is, that you can remove it. So the suffix is on the whole storehouse. Then all the grain in the storehouse joins up to be mivata the truma with 101. You follow? If we know it fell on the top, so remove that top bit and it's got a mixture of truma in it. But if you don't know where it fell, then the whole storehouse is the din, is mivata the truma. And if you've got 101 against it, then fair enough. Yeah, you might take one and give it to the Cohen, but then the truma is butter. Another case of mixtures. Shtei kupais shtei megurais. Let's say you have two storehouses of grain, of chulin, let's say, and each one, or two boxes, each one has 50 sar. So each one is 50 sar. Shenafla sar truma l'tech achas mehen. One sar of truma fell in one of them, one of the boxes. So what size did it fall in? It fell into a box of 50. Yeah. But we have two boxes of 50. Then you do it, leizim hen nafla. We don't know which one it fell in. So as far as I'm concerned, I've got a doubt of 100. Yeah. Because I've got two boxes of 50. I don't know where it fell. Ma'alo zuazu. They join up to be mevatel the truma. Right? They do join up to be mevatel.
Which box it fell into.
Well, we don't know which box it fell into.
If you knew which box it fell
If you knew, then it's not a thing. But you don't know. Yeah. So the suffix is on the whole 100. So therefore, even though definitely the sod truma fell only into one box, and there's not enough in that one box, but since both are also out of doubt, because we don't know which one it fell, they join together to nullify it. Look at Rosh Shimon's Chiddush, Rabbi Isai. Rosh Shimon Omer, afilu hein b'shtei hayoros. Even if each box is in a separate town, one's in London, one's in Manchester, they join up to nullify the truma. Ma'ale zuzu, they join up. Harav YCD Masechet Terumot Daf. The story came before 50 bunches of vegetables, where one truma one fell in, and it was chetzia truma, it was half truma and half chulin, and it fell into 50, but it was half truma and half chulin. So Amarti Lefanov Tala, I said it gets nullified, but the reason why I said it because truma ayla v'chamishim b'echad, not that truma is, I didn't say that truma is nullified in 51, no, but it was 100 times chulin and truma, so there was 100 against it. And if shayisham mea or shnei chatzayim, it was 102 halves. Yeah, the one bunch fell into a bunch where each bunch was half truma, half chulin. So therefore, there was really 102 halves against it.
Such a specific case.
Yeah. Basically, like every situation, like the previous situation of the two boxes, we look at all the bunches together, we join them up. Half the good of truma is batel in the taruvas, where the whole share is 102 halves. That was the share in our situation. It's not that truma is not oila in the share of 101. 101 is enough. In this situation, there was 102. Okay. Now, back to the Gemara now. We said in our Mishnah, the asar truma that falls on top of the mound, and you scraped away the top. Rabbi Elazar says if you have 100 tza'im, what you've removed, then it gets nullified in 101. We have a contradiction in the view of Rabbi Elazar from the earlier Mishnah. Because Taman, earlier on in Huama, he said, when you have the figs at the top of the jug, and we said a tachtainos malazilionis, the bottom ones in the jug nullify the top ones. In our Mishnah Huama, he says the truma is only nullified if you have this cover that you remove. If you have in the actual cover that you remove the top layer, 100 sav chulin. But it implies that which is at the bottom of the mound does not join up to nullify the grain at the top of the mound. Rav Yirmiyah, Rav Chia b'shem Rav Yochanan, Rav Shimon bar Abba b'shem Kahana, Divrei Rabbi Elazar. The words of Rabbi Elazar in our Mishnah is because according to him, the Chachamim also Isa, they treated the grain that you remove as far as the rest of the grain, it's like you're intentionally adding chulin to nullify the truma. And there's a knas that you can't take the chulin that you add to be mevatel. So since you're removing the top part of this mound, we don't say that the grain underneath is mixed with the top bit. And if you're going to join it together to mevatel the truma, you're moisif chulin to the mixture to be mevatel the truma. Right? You're being mevatel yisel chatzchila, he says over here. So we can't allow you. Let's see this again. He says it's like you're intentionally to be mevatel it. That there's a knas that we can't allow you to use the bottom bit to be mevatel the top bit. But by you removing the top bit, then we say, right, okay, the bottom bit is not mixed with this at all. Okay, that's why. Rabbi Ila, Rabbi Asi, V'shem Rabbi Yochanan. Divrei Rabbi Elazar, the words of Rabbi Elazar in our Mishnah, because according to him, also Isa, we treat that which you remove, kasa oila mitach mea, like a saw of truma coming out of 100 saw of chulin, they got mixed in. If this saw went and mixed with chulin, it's not batel until you have 100 parts against it. So it's like, imagine let's say you got a mixture of 100, and truma falls in one saw. So the din is, if that saw, let's say you took a saw out. So now, if that saw you took out got mixed up with chulin again, it's not batel. Again, we need 100 against it. So you take a saw out,
So
we say, what?
So you're holding
We don't know this is truma. We say this is the truma that fell in. And we treat it as the truma that fell in to such a degree that if it got mixed with another mixture, you need 100 against it. So that's what he's saying here. Now also, so we treated the case where you're removing it, like a saw coming out of 100, where it got mixed in, that if it went back and got mixed in chulin, it's not batel until you have 100 against it. Right? He says here, Rabbi Asi argues in what we said. According to him, when the truma got mixed up, it's really mixed in the whole mound. And after you remove the top bit, which has the truma in, we don't say, oh, you're showing you don't treat it as one mound. No, the truma remains nullified. Right? But, he says, even if the truma is batel, it's not permitted, you've got to separate the truma to give it to a Cohen. Right? And that bit that you separate, we treat it as if it's the truma itself. In the lashon they use, Sasha Nafla is Sasha Alsa. The one that fell in is the one that came up. Okay? And if you go and it got mixed with chulin again, it's not batel till you have 100 parts against it. So in our situation, saw truma that fell is batel and chulin in the whole mound. But you have to remove one. The shear of truma, you have to remove the saw of truma, pick it up. And that lift that you're covering, the load that you're removing, is like lifting up the truma. Now, you didn't take the truma on its own, you lifted it with other chulin mixed together. Nevertheless, the Rabbanon treat it as if you've picked it up on its own, and got mixed up with other chulin, and that's why you need to have, when you pick up an amount, you need a share of 100 chulin against this truma. You get that? That's why you need to pick up 101. Because we say that truma, although it got mixed up, is now re-truma again when you separated it, when you picked it up. So you need to take 100 against it at the same time. Okay. Al Date, so there were two interpretations. So what did we have again? We had Rabbi Eliezer said you're being Mabeh b'mezid, so therefore, you're Mosif Chulin to the mixture to Mevatel the Truma. Okay. And Rabbi Eliezer therefore said we treat it as like a Knas. Mabeh b'mezid. Rabbi Ela was the one who said that it's like the extra Sav Truma, you need to treat it as Truma still, you need another 100. Al-Da'atei de Rav Asi, according to Rav Asi, this is what we just quoted, Mutter, you are allowed to lift up the amount, le rabbis, to increase the chulin to 100 sar, and through that you'll mevatel the truma. Al da'atei de kahana, according to the kahana interpretation, right, where also you're not allowed b'kavana to take an amount, le rabbis, to do more chulin, to make it, to increase it to 100 sar, because you cannot add chulin to a mixture of truma and chulin to be mevatel the truma. So you won't be allowed to add more, according to Kahana. According to Rabbi Ila, you will. Now, another difference. What happened? You lifted up an amount, kafar, b'chazava kafar, and you lifted another amount again, second time. Al da'atei de Rav Asi, according to Rav Asi, mutter, that's fine. You're not causing now any bittul of truma. Whereas al da'atei de kahana, according to Kahana, also you're causing a bittul of the truma. According to Kahana, the sal truma you're lifting, the sal truma was never butter. You cannot add chulin to a mixture and cause it to become butter. And don't make a second lifting of produce, because the whole purpose of it is to add chulin to the mixture, which was created from the first lifting off, and cause that to bittul. And if you don't do it a second time, the mixture that's created from the two liftings is also. Okay. Al-Da'atei de Rav Asi, according to Rav Asi, we said you've got 100 sar, you'll mevatel the truma, af al pi shaloi shia. Even though you didn't leave anything behind, you basically removed the whole amount. According to Rav Asi, it will be okay. So he says when you remove the whole amount, it doesn't look like you're separating truma from the chulin underneath. You're just doing it to mix the truma at the top with the chulin underneath, and all the chulin will join up to nullify it. According to Rav Asi, the truma is already batel. It was nullified as soon as it fell in. Therefore, there's no isur. You're not causing bitter isur, and the truma remains batel because it's mixed with 100 sar of chulin. So if it's already nullified, you're not doing anything new. There is a chidush here. When you remove the whole mound, there's no way to explain that your kavanah was to allow the rest of the mound, because you've left the rest with one mixture as exactly as it was before. You haven't really changed anything. Your kavanah is just to mix the truma in the chulin. Okay. Adate de kahana, according to kahana, the words of Rabbi Eliezer were only said shashir, where you left a bit behind. When you remove the top bit, but you left a bit behind. That way you're showing your kavanah is not to be mevatel the truma, your kavanah is to allow the remainder, and the truma is anyway butter. Okay. Shtei kupas, you have two boxes or two storehouses, and each one has 50 sar, and it fell in and we don't know where it fell. They all join up to mevatel the truma. Shtei kupas, even if they're on two floors, two attics. Shtei megurais, two storehouses, b'aliyah achas, in one attic, they join to be mevatel the truma. Ava shtei megurais, b'shtei aliyahs, two stores on two attics, lo b'dar, the din was not said. Ma ben kupas and megurais, what's the difference between a box and a storehouse? Why they join up to mevatel truma, but two stores on two attics don't join? Kuba is darker than Hispanis. Boxes always get emptied. You move them from place to place. So even if they're on two attics, you're going to mix their contents anyway in the end. And therefore we treat it as if they're mixed now. Whereas Meguris, the storehouses, ain't darker than Hispanis. They don't get moved from place to place. So when they're on two attics, we're not going to get mixed up together, and we cannot treat it as a mixture. As we said, when truma is batel and chulin, which has got 100 against it, the mixture is also until you lift up the amount of truma that fell in order to give it to a Cohen. Right? The Gemara discusses how you lift up the truma in the way mentioned in the Mishnah, where truma fell into one of two boxes. So Rav Zeir, Rav Chia, B'Shem, Rish Lakish. How you lift up shtei kupas? You had two boxes, 50 sar each. Nafla sal truma te'achas man. So if truma falls in one of them. We don't know which one it fell in. Raz said halos mizu mala. You want to take your saw out of this one? You can. Raz mizu mala. You take from the other one? You can. Mechza mala. You want to take half from here, half from there? You can do that. Two mikvahs. Bazu esrim sal. This is 20 sal of rainwater. And bazu esrim sal. This is 20 sal. Rabbi say mikvah needs to be 40 sal. Here you got 2 mikvahs of 20 sal. And Renaflu Shlesh is looking Maim Shuvin, 3 lug of drawn water, 3 lug passels of mikvah, right? 3 lug of drawn water, passels of mikvah. So 3 lug fell in one of them. We don't know which one. If you want to remove the passel waters, so it's 20 sa and a bit more from this mikvah, you can do it from this one. You want to take from this one? Do it from this one. Right? Even if you want to do machzazah, you want to do half from here and half from there, you are able to do so. Right? You're able to do it. We look at the whole thing as joined up together. Right? Rav Simon of Shem Bapadon. You had 2 boxes of chulin. This is 50, this is 50 sa. But now for Sar Truma, you don't enough now. A Sar of Truma falls in one, and we know which one. We know which one it fell in. So it only asks us that box it fell in. A second Sar of Truma fell in. We don't know which one it fell in. Where did the second one fall? We say, where the first one fell, that's where the second one fell. The second one followed the first. And the first one, the other one remains permitted. Lava, why do we say that? Shatailin kalkala b'mekulkal. We send trouble to trouble. You hear that? We send trouble to trouble. Right? Trouble to trouble. If this one fell in there, the second one fell in there. If you got trouble in that box, that's probably where the second trouble went. Right? This is the din of Tailin. This halacha is talking about 2 boxes where one holds truma, one holds chulin. And truma falls in one. We don't know which one. We say the truma fell into the truma. It's a suffix issa drabanan here. Why? Either because truma nowadays is with drabanan, or minat Torah, even if it was definite truma, falling into chulin, it's bata b'rov. You've got a rov against it. You might not have 100, but you've got a rov. So it's only a suffix drabanan. Suffix drabanan, we say tailim. Suffix drabanan l'kula, we say the truma fell where the truma was. Didn't ask for more than what we had already. Let's put this brought down. Okay. Now, if after that, riba al hayedua, if afterwards you added chulin onto the box that you know the sar fell in, or bidla, and you nullified that sar, shogig, by mistake, mala, you can take one sar out of it to give to the Cohen, or matir, and you allow the rest of the box from the isur of the first sar that fell in. V'shnia, so the first one, basically, we've removed the isur now. You've been mevatel the truma there. B'shogig, you've been mevatel the truma there. So now, when the second one falls, I don't have 2 boxes and say, well, the first one fell there, because the first one fell there has disappeared now. So v'shnia chazra leichicha. Now you have to work out which box did the sar fall. And since you don't know where it fell, both boxes are included in the doubt. We cannot allow the boxes by saying, we'll join them up. Why? Because what have you done? By being mevatel one b'shogeg and taking the sar out and mati and allowing that box from the isur of the first sar, that's what we've done. We sort of removed the first sar falling into the box, the first box. And the second one now, we're back to square one. Where did this thing fall? We don't know. So they're both mixed up. We can't allow the boxes by joining them together. Okay. We can't say it fell where the first one fell because the first one's been sorted. So he says here, even though we already decided the second one follows the first one, but now that the isur, which was chal, because the first one is batel, we can't continue to say that the second one fell into the same box where the first one fell. Therefore, the din comes back to what it was in the beginning, that we have a doubt which box it fell in, and therefore both boxes are forbidden out of suffix. Okay? Right. Next one. He says, because according to this, you're going to end up, both boxes a bottle through 150 sar, and that's not enough. You need 200. If both boxes together only hold 150, right, it's 50 and 50, and we added an extra 50, we end up with 150. In order to be mevatel 2 sar of truma, we need 200. We can't rely on 150. Good. Now, another din, which is the opposite of the earlier case. Shtei kupos, you have 2 boxes of chulin. Bezur chamishim sar, bezur chamishim. This is 50, that's 50. V'naf l'sar truma l'toch chasmen. Truma falls into one. Then you realize v'naf, which one did it fall? V'akach naf l'shneya. Again, truma falls again. But this time, v'yadu v'naf. Second time, we know where it fell. We don't say, well, where the second one fell, that's where the first one fell.
What's the last time?
So here we don't say, because we say things follow what happened before. We don't say things are premature of what's going to happen later. So we know the second one fell. You can't say that the first one fell where the second one fell. Right? The kula of tanin kol kola b'mekolkol is where one of them is mekolkol, when the second one we don't know falls in. In this situation, none of the boxes were mekolkol at the time when the first one fell. So both boxes are included in the doubt, even where one of them later on became mekolkol. So therefore, the second one fell. We don't know where. We know where the second one fell. We don't know where the first one fell. So you can't say that's where the first one fell. If afterwards, you added chulin on one of them, a bitla, you mevatel it shegeg. So now they're back to square one. Ma'ale mati, you can lift up one sar or mati in the other box. Mashnia asura ad sheyaba lo shegeg. The second one would be forbidden until you increase shogeg chulin for that. So what's he saying here? If you added chulin on one of them and then you mevatel it, so as if nothing's fallen in, now you're back to square one. So ma'ala or mati, that way you can lift up a star and allow the box, and the second one is forbidden until you add b'shogeg. Now we equated before Rish Lakish the situation of sar truma that falls into one of 2 boxes of chulin. We don't know where it fell. And also the case of 3 lug of water that falls into one of the 2 mikvahs, where each one had 20 sar. We don't know which one it fell. So just like truma, you can remove the sar you give to the Kohen from the 2 boxes. So also in the mikvah, you remove the water, the puzzle water, right? A bit 20 and a bit to remove it. And that way you can remove whichever way. So he says, but now why are these cases the same? Because Amar Mashal and Matan, if he said what's in the box at the bottom is truma for the Kohen, or Mashal and Malan, what's the top is chulin, or Mashal and Matan chulin. If he said what's in the box at the bottom is chulin, or Mashal and Malan, what's in the top is truma, and the words are chal, because le'datoi hadavar toloi, he can decide where is the truma, where is the chulin, and therefore he can lift up the truma whichever way he lifts it up. But after mikvah came, but are you going to say the same with the mikvah? If he says, you know what? You remember 3 lug fell in 20 sar? Oh, you know what? The 3 lug is at the top. Can he say that? Mashal and matan kivuya kashera, mashal and malan kivuya pasula. What's at the bottom is the kosher mikvah, and the shuvim is at the top. Can he say that? Mashal and matan kivuya pasula, mashal and malan kivuya kashera. The data doesn't depend on what he thinks. Definitely not. So we cannot compare lifting truma from the boxes to removing the mikvah water puzzle from the mikvahs. Now back to the price that we brought earlier on. Now we said there are cases where the boxes joined together to be master of the truma that fell into one of them. But the storehouses don't join up to be master of the truma that fell into one of them. Hey Chavidah, what's the case? 2 storehouses where each one has 50 sar, which are on b'shtei aliyas, on 2 floors, 2 attics. But now when truma falls in one, we don't look at them all joined together. Therefore, they're all forbidden to Zorim, to Israeli. Riba alachas man, if you increased on one of the storehouses, or bitla, you'll mevatel the truma that's found there, because now you have 100 sar against it, and you did it shogeg, then male, you can remove a sar to give to the Kohen, or matir and allow that storehouse, b'shnia, and the second one remains forbidden. Because when you end up adding another 50 sar of chulin to be mevatel the truma that fell there, and you do it shogeg, then that will also be himut has to be permitted, but it doesn't need, you don't need to lift up another sar to give to the Kohen. Basically, you've already taken one sar out of the first half. Now you ended up being mevatel truma in the second half. You don't have to take another sar to give to the Kohen. Shukvar also truma. We've already separated one sar. We've given it to the Kohen. You don't have to separate a second sar. Oh, Rabbi Yossi said, Maaseh, a story came before Rabbi Kiva. We had 50 bunches of vegetables, where it was fell in, one vegetable bunch fell into 50, and each one was half truma and half chulin, and he said it's butter. Tani Rabbi Yossi Omer, Ba'alo, if the truma was mixed in throughout the chulin, Male is mevatel the chulin in the truma. She'ena ba'alo, if it's not mixed throughout the chulin, even though you don't know where it is, Eina male, it's not butter. Tanina, we've learned Harav YCD Masechet Terumot Daf. 50 bunches of vegetables should nafla. One bunch fell achas l'teichon chetzia truma, half bit truma, half chulin. Amati lefanim, I said tale. It should be nullified. Hare eina bolo. Now in our situation, it's not mixed. The truma is not bolin and chulin, all of them. It's only mixed with that bunch. It's not really mixed with the other bunches. Each bunch is a separate bunch. Or mala, and yet Rabbi Yossi said the chulin is mevatel the truma. Have a boiler. You have to say, the view of Rabbi Yossi is davashu makpid al tarufta enamala. Something you're very particular about its mixture, then the chulin is not mevatel the truma, unless the truma is mureves with chulin, mixed with the whole thing. If you don't care about the mixture, then the chulin is mevatel the truma, even if it's not really mixed together. So hey Chavi, it was the case. Imagine like this: kishus tamei. You have your tamei cucumbers of truma, shenaflu l'tech mea kishuin tahirin, that fell into 100 kosher ones, tahar ones of chulin, which were not susceptible to receive tuma. Yeah, so one fell into 100. You don't really care about the mixture. He says here the tamei one can't really be metame the others. It's a kishus tamei that fell into 100 which are tahar. It cannot be metame the others. Mala. So the 100 are mevatel the truma, even if they're in two separate boxes. But hushuru, if they were susceptible, it can't be metame the others because they've not come into contact with liquid, right? But hushuru, if the 100 were susceptible to receive tuma, hervul makpidat truma, you really don't want them mixing in. I don't want this tummy one touching the others. I don't want it to be metame the others. Eina mala. Then the kishem are not mevatel the truma, right? Since you really don't want them to be mixing together, then they're not mevatel the truma. Right? It says here the dinner of Rabbi Yossi in our Mishnah, half a bunch of truma that got mixed up with bunches of chulin is mevatel, even though the pile is separate from the other bunches of chulin. Whether it's the case where these chulin weren't mushra to receive tuma, or where it's truma and their chulin which is tar, you don't mind about getting it mixed up. Okay. Adjon alach hamafresh. How are we doing? Okay. Right. Perek Hamishi. Okay. Now we spoke about dimua, right? Mixtures of truma and chulin. Now we're continuing in dimua. Now truma, as you know, is batel in 101. You've got 100 chulin against the truma. And we said you have to remove some from the mixture, the amounts of truma that got mixed in, and give it to the Kohen. If you don't have 100, then the whole mixture is forbidden to Israelim. Now, first of all, we're talking about, what about, you don't have 100 chulin against the truma, and now there's three things. What happens if the truma is tamei, and it gets in the mixture? What about if the truma and chulin are both tahar, and it gets in the mixture? Or what if the truma is tahar and the chulin is tamei, and it gets in the mixture? Whether it's truma which is tahar or truma which is tamei, getting mixed up with chulin, they are batel in 100, but the question is what's tamei and what's tahar? And if you didn't have chulin 100 to mevatel, the mixture has got the din of truma. So first of all, we're talking about truma which is tamei gets mixed up in chulin. So truma tamei shenofel lepachas mimei, it fell into less than 100 of chulin. And it's truma which is tamei. Rabbi said, what can a Kohen do with truma which is tamei? What? He can burn it for fuel. That's it. So truma tamei shenofel lepachas mimei chulin. Either master rishon, or fell to master rishon, or master sheni, or hekdesh. But whether the chulin and the maestros and the hekdesh that the truma fell in were tahar, bein tamein, or they were tamei, yilkuvu. You let it rot. The whole mixture is also to be eaten, even for kohanim. It's like truma tamea mixed in, so it's not batel, and let it rot.
Because of the tumah.
What?
Because
it's
it's
truma, which is tamei.
Tamei.
Now, why don't we use it as fuel? We'll see. We'll discuss that. Truma tamei is mutter to kohanim to get benefit. We didn't want it hanging around. That's why we said just let it rot. Now, we'll see. What about truma tahira in chulin, which is tahar? If tahira if the soft truma was tahar and the chulin was tahar, yimachru, you can sell the whole mixture lekohanim b'dmei truma at truma prices, which are cheap, because the whole mixture is also to zorim anyway. Only kohanim can eat it. They're the only ones who'll buy it. Now, you can't sell. He has to get something free. He has to get the truma part free. The rest he can pay cheap, but for the truma bit, you have to give him. That soft truma he gets free. He doesn't have to pay for that. That belongs to him. You have to give it for nothing. If your truma tahar fell into masav rishon, which is tahar, and this masav rishon has not yet had trumas maser separated, and it's therefore tebel asabachil, because you're not separated trumas maser, yikra shem the trumas maser. Give a name for trumas maser in this maser. Sell the mixture to kohanim for truma money. Apart from that sar, which he gets free, and the money of the trumas maser, which he gets free as well. If it fell into maser sheni or hekdesh or elu yipodu, you can redeem it and make it to chulin. And the din of the mixture has got the din of the taruvas of truma and chulin, which can be sold to the kohanim apart from the amount of that sar. Now, if the chulin that the truma fell in was tamei, now, yes, it can be eaten by kohanim, like truma tahira with chulin, which is tamei. Now, we don't want the truma to be tamei from the chulin, which is tamei. We don't want it to defile the truma, right? So, you know what you have to do? You sell them the mixture of the chulin, which is tamei, and the truma, but he has to eat it like this. He has to divide it into little loaves, where each one is less than an egg size. Remember, an egg, less than an egg, can't receive tumah. So you have to eat it, divide it up into little bits. And food which is tamei less than an egg can't be metamei food which is tahar. Or you sort of dry roasting that there's no liquids involved and it won't be susceptible to receive tumah. Or you knead it with fruit juice. We do not make it susceptible to receive tumah. Or you divide some of the flour, the mixture, in little doughs which are tahar, with a shear. You shouldn't have in one place, in one of the doughs, an egg size of chulin, which is tamei in the mixture. They won't defile the truma. Less than an egg is not tamei. So you've got to make it into little bits so that it won't defile the truma, you see. So even though, it's fallen in really, but you have to eat it in a way. The shar truma tahar fell into chulin, which is tamei. You should break it up into little bits. Now, what about a mixture of truma and chulin, where you have in the chulin 100 meah, you got 100 to be mevatel the truma, okay. Sorry, is that again? Yeah, you've got truma falling into chulin, where you've got 100 against it. So anyone can eat it. You have to separate one, but the rest can be eaten by anyone. You have to separate one sar, and you give that to the kohen. Now, what about the bit that you separate out the mixture? Now, what happens if the truma was tamei, or if the truma was tahar and the chulin was tamei? So let's start with the truma being tamei gets mixed up in chulin. You got that truma tamei in chulin, right? Now, what are we going to do? Now, there's 100 chulin here. Rabbi say 100 chulin. You're mevatel the truma, right? You take one out. What is the status of this one you separate? Is it tamei or is it tahar? How do we treat it? Sar truma tamei should not fall chulin tahirin. So if you have a sar truma, which is tamei, falling into chulin, which is tahar, not susceptible to receive tumah, you lift up a sar of fruit, but tisarif and burn it like truma, which is tamei. Right, truma tamei fell in. You separate one, treat it as if it's tamei. Because shani yomer, I say sar shenafli, sar also. The one that fell in is the one you picked up. And that is the din of the sar, which is lift up. We treated it as if it's the one that fell in, which was truma, which was tamei, therefore you should burn it. Pick one up, and the kohen can eat it. treat it as if it's tahar. You hear that? It's nullified. Now you pick up one, treat it as if it's tahar. Now at the end of the day, there is fruit which is tameh in this mixture. Right? The truma which is tameh is in this mixture. Now I agree it's batel, and Israelim can eat it, but that tumah has not gone anywhere. So in order not to defile the sar which you're picking up, you should eat it nikudim okalayas atilish mei peres. Eat it in the less than a beitza size proportions. As this many little doughs. We don't want you to have an egg size in one place. So yes, truma tameh falls in 100 chulin is nullified. I pick up one. That's the truma I designate now, but eat it because there was tameh stuff in here. So eat everything in small proportions. Sar truma tahira shenaflu lamei chulin tamed. A sar of truma which is tahir fell into 100 chulin which is tameh. You got that? Tahir falling into tameh, and it became batel because you've got 100 against it. So Yisrael can eat the lot. Ta'ala, you can lift up one. Now according to everyone, it's considered truma which is tahir. The teyachal, the kohen can eat it. Don't defile from chulin which is tameh in the sar. The kohen can eat it in small portions. Only could ever close the bread with fruit juice. Divided into small doughs. So we don't want to have an egg size in one place. Okay, still with me, Rabbi Zai? Mm-hmm. First part of the Mishnah. Sar truma tameh. So a sar of truma which is tameh falls into less than 100 of chulin. Whether it's tahir or tameh, you have to let it rot. So a mixture of truma in tevel of shvius. Tani Reb Chia. Tevel, male. Tevel can nullify truma. Truma mixed up with tevel. If you've got 100 against it, it's batel. The tevel will nullify the truma, and it will be a din of tevel. Or svichei shvius, the fruit of shmita, which you have to eat with kedusha. Malin, they nullify truma. And so is the din of these mixtures. If you have truma mixed with tevel, male, you can lift up the shiv truma which fell in, and you can give it a name to remove this sar that you're giving to the kohen. You can remove the issa tevel. He says, we're worried the sar might not be the truma that fell in. Maybe it's tevel. So the owner has to separate trumas and maasros before you give it to the kohenim. And svichei shvius, when truma falls into svichei shvius, the din is malin. You can separate the mixture, like the shiv truma that fell in, to give it to the kohenim. And you give it to those people who can eat it, people who treat it with kedusha shvius. So again, you have to give it to the people who will treat it properly. Okay, so we said tevel is male truma. Tevel can nullify truma as well. Oh, Rabbi Yossi says, Masnisa Amraken, our Mishnah says this. It says, Sar truma that falls into Shanafla Lepachas Me'er fell into less than 100 of Chulin or Masasheni, you have to let it rot. The reason why, because it's less than 100. Neishu Pachas Me'er, right? Is you don't have Master Rishon 100 against the truma, it's not bottom. On Me'er, if it fell into 100 Sar of Master Rishon, Tala is nullified. He says, wait a minute. 100 Sar, what's this? Sar truma that fell into, let's say, Maser Rishon or whatever it is nullified. But like Tevel, but Maser Rishon is like Tevel. Why? You've not yet separated Trumas Maser from it. And even so, it's Mevatel the Truma. What do we see? Tevel can be Mevatel Truma. Okay. Taman Taninan, we have learnt in Tamura. Now we're talking about machlekes about the heter hana of kohanim from truma tamea at the time while it's burning. Taman Tanina, madlikim bepas v'shemen shel truma. You can set up as fuel bread or oil of truma which was tameh. You're allowed to get benefit from it. Chizkiah, he says, only bread and oil, which you use them for fuel, and even bread, it gets a bit moldy, you use it for fuel. Any other truma which is tameh, which you don't usually use as fuel, you cannot get benefit. Rabbi Yochanan, he said, there's no difference. He shemen, the same din with bread, with oil. He shakal advarim, the same din with everything else as well. Rabbi Yudan Kapotkia, but he asked, according to Chizkiah, you can only use bread and oil. Chitin could pass. What about wheat? Has got the same din. Zaytim kishemin, olives got the same din as oil, and you can use them. It might be a statement He's asking. Pashas, he's asking. Yeah. Rav Shmuel, Bar Nachman Shem Rav Yonasan, Hamadlik b'Paschal Truma. If you use bread of Truma, which is Tameh, Yisarfu Asmos, his bones should burn. He argues on the Mishnah brought above. He holds you're not allowed to use bread of Truma, which is Tameh. Rav Shmuel Bar Nachman, Baikum Rav Yochanan. He asked before Rav Yochanan, what do we do lemaisa? Mar lahadlik. Can you use bread of truma which is tameh? Do you have to worry about Rabbi Yonasan who asks it? Amalei, he says adlek. You know what? You can light it. Mar tenava l'shivtach nafilach. Light it. Don't worry about the curse of Rabbi Yonasan. You're not an individual in this matter. All the Kohanim do this. Whatever happens from heaven on your tribe, so be it. And all the Kohanim will happen some on you as well. Okay. Hakol moedim. Now, everyone agrees, even if you cannot light with bread of Truma Tameah, they agree Shem and oil of Truma Tameah, Shumuta, you can use. It says, speak to Aaron, I give Mishmeres to Remaisa Lachanas Tatim, I give it to you Lamashcha, to like anoint. Mashcha can mean Lamashcha Ligdula for greatness, appointment for greatness. You should eat Manas Kahuna in the way of greatness, like the kings eat. Lamashcha Lesicha for anointing. You can anoint with Shemen of Truma. Lamashcha Lehadlaka for lighting. That means mashcha in Aramaic, and oil is usually there for fuel, and that you can use. To be continued, Rabbi.